Hi guys, and welcome to Classic Rock Country Music Facts and Trivia. Once again, shifting gears a little bit. Um, Today's video is on George Jones, a country music icon, and 8 heartbreaking moments from his life. We start with the Porter Wagner incident. I think by now we all realize the disastrous results abusing anything can have on the brain and body. Somehow George, bless his heart, had gotten in his mind that Tammy was having an affair with Porter Wagner. George was under the chemical influence of diet pills and alcohol. He followed Wagner as he saw him enter the men's bathroom and shouted, "I want to see what Tammy's so proud of," and grabbed his privates and twisted. George states that this is the worst thing he's ever done while drunk. Decades later, this story was the only one Wagner could recollect when asked to recall his experiences with George Jones. Las Vegas. George was fortunate. He had people that really did love him and tried to help him along the way. The goal was to try to make it hard for George to get booze. George was rarely outdone and found creative ways to slip away from his friend handler Jimmy Hills. One particular instance had George paying a hostess of the Palomino Club in North Hollywood to go see Willie Nelson in Las Vegas with him. The plan worked until she got tired of Jones's constant yammering and asked Jimmy to fill in for her instead. Another unfortunate incident happened at the house of one of George's dearest friends, Waylon Jennings. Sorry. In the 80s, Waylon was the height of his career and at the height of the cocaine addiction, consuming $1,500 a day. Waylon, however, didn't drink, but George sure did, along with cocaine and pills. George was a bit obnoxious, and Waylon decided to give him some alcohol with the thought that that would put George to sleep. Well, it just doesn't work that way. Waylon and his guitar player, Jerry Groff, left George alone. That was a big mistake, as the sugar in the alcohol energized George. Before you knew it, George was redecorating Waylon's room by throwing and breaking anything he could. Waylon and Jerry heard the commotion and came in to see what was going on. Jerry tried to confine George's feet to keep him from moving. George kicked Jerry's hands and broke his thumb, which has ended his playing days for a little while. George proceeded to throw a heavy picture frame at Waylon, which he said could have killed him if he hadn't made contact. Waylon and George both mentioned the incident in their respective biographies. Man, I'm having trouble today. George felt horrible about the incident. You're probably wondering how they finally stopped him. Well, Waylon tied him and left him on the couch, and that's all. The car incident. George was rushing to catch a plane for a show, but could not find a parking space. Frustrated, he finally gave up, ended up parking his car on the sidewalk right at the main entrance of the airport. He also left the key in the ignition turned on. For 2 whole days. There the car remained. The only reason the car was not towed was that George was at the foresight to leave a note. "Please, to whom it may concern, I was in quite a hurry. This flight was very important. My name is George Jones, the Grand Ole Opry, and I'll be back tomorrow evening." Peanut Montgomery. Peanut Montgomery and his wife were good friends of George. Their house in Florence, Alabama saw the likes of George on many occasions, especially when he was going through some trouble. Peanut was an old drinking buddy until he found Jesus. One night, George asked Peanut to meet him at the river. Peanut came and proceeded to tell George that he would be going to hell if he didn't repent. George recalls that it was too much to take, given the fact he had partied with Peanut throughout his adult life. Peanut did not let up, and George became outraged. He grabbed his pistol and says he shot above the car roof. Peanut left and went to the police. The charge, attempted murder. This was Peanut's way of getting George some help. Of course, the charges were dropped. This was 1977. After Tammy, George had no real hits to speak of, and cocaine and alcohol were his constant companions. DDooodle and the Old Man. By the late 70s, George's cocaine and alcohol addiction were so severe that 2 separate personalities started to emerge. One was named DDooodle and had a duck-type voice. The other was of an old man. Personalities would berate each other and Jones and attack his greatest insecurities and reflect his self-hatred. Personalities were out of his control, making it hard for him to drive and even taking over during concerts despite his efforts to get it to stop. This horrified him. To make matters worse, Jones had to live in his car for some time because of his perpetual debt. Peanut Montgomery got so concerned at George's clearly deteriorating mental and physical state that he managed to gain custody of him in court and sent to a drug and alcohol treatment ward. But as soon as he came out, he celebrated his recovery by getting a drink and snorting cocaine. It's snowing in the back room. Nearing the late 1970s, George's addictions were so bad that he had a state of perpetual confusion and misheard things quite a bit, not to mention that he had an overactive imagination. It was so bad that one day George ran out of his friend's barber shop and poured a bag of cocaine he had in his pants leg onto the backroom floor. Now, why did he do that? Well, he thought the person Jimmy, his former handler, and the barber had introduced him to was an FBI agent. George misheard the introduction. The gentleman was actually an IRS worker. Jimmy's wife had vacuumed up the spilled cocaine, and everyone miraculously managed to avoid charges. I'm back. By the beginning of 1980, George Jones was not a #1 song in 6 years. He also filed for bankruptcy and spent some time living in his car. As George liked to say, a 4-decade career was salvaged by a 4-minute song. In his appearance at the Opry after the success of He Stopped Loving Her Today, a well-meaning Barbara Mandrell went into the audience to give Jones the mic to sing his part in the song, I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool. However, George was so far gone in his state of inebriation, courtesy of some former Nashville drinking buddies, he just was not able to sing his lines. In his acceptance speech for Male Vocalist of the Year, he thanked Johnny Wright and Kitty Wells because they were the first people he was able to see when he was on stage. George lived a rough and tumble life, but was able to change his ways thanks to some strong support system. And he came back from a hellish life, I'm telling you. There was one story where he was supposed to do a show, and he was so drunk he couldn't hardly stand. He'd move around a lot and stagger around a lot, so they duct taped his body underneath his clothes. That's sad. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you did somehow enjoy this. Learn something new every day, right? Please subscribe if you have not yet. Please like this video. You guys have a great day. God bless you. Praying for you.